So thanks for having us. Today, I'm going to be joined by one of our cohorts, Bruno. He's going to be doing most of the demonstration today. But we're really excited actually because we get this AI thing, and for the past for the past 3 years, I think my doctor hates me because I no longer sleep. And I think it goes for almost everybody. Well, hopefully not in some ways, but it goes for a lot of us. Just a little bit about us. We have a couple companies. Genie is Bruno's product, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that, and we're going to be talking about Klai, and I'll explain what Klai is as well in just a second. But just a bit of background. You may have known us in the past from our prior company, which is the same company, but we rebranded and we rechanged direction. We used to be known as FM Better Forms, and we started around 8 years ago. And we started developing and offering basically advanced access or access to advanced web technology, but without having to learn all of that technology. So we abstracted a lot of it away. And in the process of that, we've had hundreds of developers and consulting companies and such be able to build all kinds of really, really powerful web apps. Um, but we realized that, as we sort of started to grow, and I think this goes for every company, and we go through these different types of phases as we grow, we realized that we're really offering different things. And the things that changed that we offered 8 years ago and what we offer today is very, very different. FM Better Forms was never a good name. It was just an internal working name that we never ended up changing. So one of the directional changes is not only our name, but in how we're approaching software development and what we're offering as far as a platform and a product. And we started looking back and we said, okay, well, what do we really have to offer as a company? And this sort of governed us quite a bit. And it's infrastructure. We have, multi data center, multi availability, and this fairly complex network that we can serve applications from dynamically. We offer a secure platform that's had hundreds of apps over almost a decade running on it, and we're exceptionally heavy on support. We do real-time support. We don't have any tickets or anything like that. It's like our team is online right away, and you can talk to almost anybody almost at any time. So one of the biggest things that we're realizing in sort of the age of AI is governance and like what happens when we're writing code. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. When you're writing code, you know, code is really cheap, as we all know, right? It's really, really cheap to generate now, but it's also cheap to generate slop. And you could argue that, sloppy code, as long as it works, it's okay. But there's a fundamental problem with some of that, and it's the transparency within that code. Can you generate that code and run it safely? So that's kind of the direction that we're moving into. I want to take a few seconds because it's been a while since I met with some of you folks. Um, I think you guys had me on one of your other meetups, maybe about a year and a half ago, or quite a while. I want to tell you a little bit about what's new in our platform, about where we're going with that, and then we're going to jump right into full stack agentic engineering. One of the biggest things that we've introduced over the past year or so is a graphical environment. So we have the ability to touch stuff, to touch the pieces, to make small changes, small edits, and things like that within the application. And this is kind of a funny one because we're starting to see the shift pull back now in terms of development that we're not actually touching the thing that we're making. Right, we're seeing that in FileMaker. We're seeing people build these web-powered layouts. We actually did that almost a decade ago, but we're starting to see it catch on. And at that point, you're not really grabbing the input field. You're not stretching it wider like you are in FileMaker. You're more or less prompting it into existence, or maybe if you're more adept, you're changing the code a little bit. So we're starting to see a pullback from that, but still, it is really valuable being able to inspect things and being able to take things apart a little bit and understand, really grok it into your head about how stuff works. Um, Something else that we've introduced and we're continuing to grow is a component library. So we can reuse components, chunks of pieces of chunks of code. And we've also, and I'm going to talk about the AI assistants in a second, but we also added that into our AI. So now we're seeing our AI generate these components as well, so they can be reused throughout the applications that you build. Um, Other things are our AI assistant and the support underneath that. That's undergoing a bunch of changes over the past, probably past 2 weeks or so. We didn't have that a year ago. Well, actually, sorry, that's not really true. We didn't have some of the abilities a year ago. We introduced the AI assistant in 24. Yeah, 24, late 23, 24. GPT 3.5, when that first came out, that was the first model that we could kind of get it to produce some output. We didn't have tools back then and function calling and stuff, so we had to implement that ourselves. But since then, it's gone through lots of overhauls and it continues to grow in strength and grow in power and capability. And then finally, the thing we're going to be talking a little bit about today is how do you connect this stuff? So we got this great platform that you can produce apps and you can build things on, but we also can build code in other areas. So I can go to my chat GPT and say, hey, create a web page, create a dungeon crawling, walking through video game type app. You see these, all the YouTubers do this all the time. And we can generate that stuff, but there's problems with it. And the main problem is it's you have to take care of it, you have to host it, you have to maintain that, you have to get it live. And it's nice if you already have that platform. So what we did is we introduced the MCP. About how many people use an MCP within any type of AI framework at all? And just wait for a couple of hands to hopefully come in. Oh, there we got one. All right, so we got they got an X. All right, so we have a few. We'll assume it's a few people. All right. So one of the cool things is, so I'll just mention quickly what an MCP is because I think that might help. It's basically an API for AI AI or LLMs, I should say. So in around 24, we started having tool usage or functions. And the LLM started to being able to call a function, kind of like in FileMaker, an LLM could perform a script. This function could be it was really a definition. It wasn't the actual code, it was a definition. It would call the function, but it wasn't the function itself. And so the LLM could start to do stuff. And then we realized that we needed to connect these things together. So we were making APIs out of functions and having the LLM call these APIs, and then that would talk to something else. And Anthropic came along and they said, you know what, let's just standardize this. It's not really a complicated thing. It's not a fancy protocol or anything. We're just going to make it all look the same. So what they did is they introduced this model context protocol. And what that is it's a something that every model kind of knows how to do. And most harnesses have the ability to take advantage of it. And it exposes other systems to your AI. So it basically allows you to connect your AI framework, whatever that is. Could be like something like Claude Code. It could be ChatGPT. It could be Cursor. It could be VS Code. Any of those frameworks like that, and allows them to talk to other things. So we did the same thing. And we actually have an MCP in and an MCP out as well. And the MCP in allows any third-party tool to connect up to Klai Studio and basically build apps. So now Klai Studio, we're seeing that the surface of it is sort of starting to diminish, and we're seeing that surface expand into other areas. And we're seeing that in other platforms as well. Some companies have done a really, really terrible job, quite honestly, of implementing MCP with like 200 tools or something that they'll expose. And other companies, we only expose about 7 tools, and we optimize that way. And the idea here is that we get this really good functionality. We'll talk about that a little bit more in detail, but hope that gives you a little bit more background about functionality. So this is a really obvious question. Who uses AI? Just a quick another thumbs up, and I know you all do, so you got to be doing something. All right. Who uses AI? I'm going to increase the levels here to solve a coding related problem. In other words, hey, I got this piece of code, plunk it into GPT. Maybe it's a custom function in FileMaker, and it's like, oh, your problem is over here. You're resetting this variable each loop. Who uses AI to solve some kind of code? Not necessarily write the code, or at least write a little piece of it, but not necessarily implement it into the end product. Almost lots of people, right? Excellent. Let's kick it up another notch. Who is using AI to generate an entire chunk or body of code? In FileMaker, it would be a script. In something else, it might be an entire web app or web page, I should say. I'll call it a single page. So you're using AI to generate an entire script or an entire custom function or an entire HTML page, right? So we're still a pretty high percentage. Who is using AI to generate multiple entities? And what I mean by that is whether it's a script and it's a couple scripts that are talking to each other, it's a script and a custom function at the same time, it's talking to each other, or if it's a web related thing or some other language that let's say I built a sync server and it was built in Go. It has a couple files to it, so they have multi-file or multi-entity things that they're generating. Right, that one might be a little bit lower. Okay, great. So we're going to take it up another step further today. And our goal today is to demonstrate what it's like to do this more agentic type development. Right now, if for all the people who had the 60% of their hands up, you're doing development where you're kind of copying and pasting and you're moving some stuff around into some other system, ChatGPT, for example. I'll use ChatGPT as the common one. And you're pasting it in there, you're asking some questions, and everybody does that, even if no matter how skilled you are, how much resources, you still kind of have your go-to tools, I think. And you grok over that, and then you kind of probably paste that back, or you make the changes in your other thing, right? But an agentic loop, you might have heard this term before, is a little bit more closed than that. It's a cycle of development, and this is something that's evolving that we didn't really have with AI in the middle. We actually always had this in software development because we have things like pull requests and code reviews and bug reports and issue tracking. We've always had this loop. But now the loop is not involving other people. It's involving me and it's involving my LLM. It starts off with our intent, right? What is it we're trying to do? And I want to create an app that does this, and it fetches some invoices and it surfaces those invoices to a client. Then our MCP server. So the intent is taken in by say something like ChatGPT or Cursor or VS Code, whatever. Then my MCP server is going to take that and it's going to communicate that, and it's going to have some governance on there because it's not going to allow you to just do anything. And this is really, really important why we want to expose this rather than just raw AI within an application. It actually gives us some really big advantages. We're going to be talking a little bit, and Bruno's going to be demonstrating a few minutes about with Genie, which is his product, and I'll bring him on in just a second. But it's going to have a set of rules. It's going to have a set of guidelines, or we can say skills, and that's going to govern what your intent is and bring it in line with what your goal is. All right. The idea here is we can swap agents. We can put any kind of AI in between that loop into there, so we can change the level of intelligence, if you will, of the LLM and the way the harness works. We bring that back into the application, and then we allow that to be seen, or we expose that information back to the original element. So we're going back in this full circle there. All right. So what I'm going to do is let's jump to right away, and we're going to have Bruno come in. I'm going to switch over to you, and maybe we can jump and I
Yep.
can fill in all the gaps where I left off.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go over a little bit of what Charles talked about and at the same time show kind of visually speaking what we're kind of doing here. Um, Using MCP, I think it's a term people have heard before. Using AI to just like enhance your workflow, I think it's something everybody is kind of familiar with. And what we're going to show today is just a new way of using AI, specifically made for FileMaker development, but also web development. But I'm also going to challenge the idea a little bit further than that, and talk about just the concept of challenging your current working flow with the tools that we have today. Because like a year ago, things were different. 6 months ago, things were different. And a year from now, things are going to be like more different. And they're moving fast. And I think it's really important that people start opening their eyes to AI. It's good. I think the amount of people who raised their hands and said they were using AI, that's really good. Some of the meetup that we did, A lot of people are not using it. A lot of people are maybe not integrating it fully in everything they're doing, and that's fine. But I think the goal today is really to just kind of show what's possible and kind of where it's heading when the agentic loop is kind of properly set up in your workflow. Um, so what I'm going to show is both FileMaker and Clay at the same time, and I'm going to start with a really basic FileMaker file, which is an ugly file from 2012. I hate doing demos on like apps that don't exist, so I'm going to take a real life situation of an app that I'm working on, and I'll be building stuff in FileMaker and in Clay at the same time, just to kind of show you what you can do really quickly today with the tools, and then we'll go over in details with the tool that we have. So here I have a Clay app that I started last week, and right now it has a bunch of pages. And my goal for this demo is basically I want to replace a layout that I have in FileMaker and have it display in there. But I don't want to do all the work, and I don't want to explain anything to FileMaker or to my AI. I just want the AI to just jump in, take care of it. So I'm going to skip the part where the MCP is connected because it's all connected. And what I'll do is, well, let's say I'm going to move to this registration tab over here. I'm going to go into layout mode, and I'll just select, let's say, this portion of the screen over here. And I'll go into a new layout because I think that's going to be easier. We're just going to call new registration here. I'm going to make a blank form. I'm just going to paste over those fields on there. Well, and while this is pasting, I'll go prepare my prompt, which is basically what I'm going to ask the AI is, I want you to read this layout that I have in FileMaker right now, and I want you to reproduce it in Clay directly.
Hmm.
No shenanigan, nothing special. So this is Genie, which is the tool that Charles talked about, and it's a plugin that you install on FileMaker, and it offers an MCP server as well. And today I'm going to use Codex ChatGPT to do the work, but basically Clay's MCP and Genie's MCP are both connected to Codex, and whatever I'm going to ask in this conversation is going to be able to kind of do the work for me. So I'll go fetch this layout name over here. And I'm going to make sure that my metadata here is refreshed for the MCP just in case. Good. Have that. And I'm going to move here. And now I'm going to do the boring part of chatting and waiting for it to load. I'll put a really, let's say, medium is fine. And I'm going to take Luna, which is the new GPT model. They're pretty fast. And I'll say I want to rebuild the registration layout in Klai Studio. The layout is currently active in FileMaker. Look at the fields on it, build the hooks, and a new page. And I'm just going to submit that over.
So Bruno,
So
you
now
didn't
that,
specify.
yeah,
Sorry. You didn't specify what the layout was at all.
just the name. I just the
Right.
name.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
because I'm sitting on it, so when you're working with Genie, it kind of understands your FileMaker session, so it's going to be able to pull the layout you're on, and it's able to pull, even if you're not on the layout, it's able to pull the field on any layout, just like the data API is able to do. So I'm just giving it as least information as possible because I don't want to have to deal with it, and I'm just letting the AI run with it. So the reason why I created the layout was just so that we could like select a number of fields and not try to reproduce an entire layout, because the goal is not to rebuild everything automatically, but to get the quickest version 0 that I can get, just so I can get moving, so that I can show my client that I can move forward with the task and get some approval. If I try to rebuild everything at once, we all know how that's going to go. We've used AI. It's going to build a giant amount of slop, and it's not going to be faster. So I'd rather go with like small prototype, get this started, and I'm just going to let it do its thing. So it has access to Clay. This is the boring part. Well, it's the fun part if you're the developer. It's the boring part if you're part of a meeting looking at somebody doing a demo. But basically, the system is just going to do a bunch of MCP call, which is, I'm going to ask Genie for this, for this, for this. I'm going to go to Clay, and I'm going to ask play for this, and for this. Trying to understand the app, trying to see what kind of pages that I have, what's available on the layout. Is there some relationship that I need to be aware of? That kind of stuff. And this is where an agent like Codex, Claude, or Cursor, whatever you use, is going to be faster and better than you. Like no matter what you try, it's going to be able to go ahead and call those tools and use all of the resources that is available to make up its mind and make a decision. But if you provide the good explanation in the proper tool, uh, it's just going to do magic. So we're going to let it run for a little while, um, and we're going to see what comes out the other end.
Bruno, I noticed you're using Luna, which is the
The
smallest of
cheapest, yeah,
the
smallest, yeah.
cheapest, and yeah, and it's quite a bit cheaper actually too than the other two models, Terra and Sol. And have you noticed any like differences really in this
Yeah.
particular use case?
For Luna, the reason I'm using this one right now is honestly for bandwidth. I just want to make sure that it's fast. Codex as
Mhm.
kind of the reputation to be the slowest of all tools that I've used, but it's very precise,
Mm.
and I like working with it. But the 5.6 models are just outstanding. So they've been out for a week and a half, I think, officially. And I can see a huge difference. They've updated the Chat GPT app at the same time. So now you kind of have Codex and GPT all in one in there. In the new model, they work super well with it. Credits, they don't go down as much as when the 5.5 went out the first time and we had those crazy bills. Um, I I love these models. I think they're good. They're good quality for what you pay for, which is why I always jump back to Codex whenever I work. But if I want to do, it really depends what you want to do. I mean, they each have their goods and their bads. Codex is slow, which is usually the pain point, in my opinion. But as you can see right now, it knows which layout is active. It has the ID of the layout. It's able to see all of the field, and it's just making its own mind around this. It find out which key was the primary key, and it's just going through the script right now and starting to build. So again, so far, just one prompt, one layout open. I did nothing at all. So and it's just going to keep digging and keep digging and keep building. And while this is going, I can actually show some of the things that Genie gives um,
Hmm.
that are really nice also in FileMaker while this is loading. So the cool part about this is honestly just being able to connect any AI to FileMaker. I think this is just something that's important, and this is something that's also Claris has been working on, which is basically the harness that I'm displaying right now is, I believe, around what they're going to be releasing in the summer as preview. But I have also a couple of other things in there that makes it really amazing to play with, which the first thing is a script workspace agent, which is just a chat directly in your FileMaker session, where you can ask a question about the current script. You can ask it to make a modification. You can ask it to debug the script, and it's just going to go in and it sees which script you're on. It's able to answer question. It can produce like PDFs and reports if you need some sort of a report for a bug. It can also evaluate using a calculation engine. So let's say you're trying to debug a script, you have the script parameter at the top, and you just throw it in there. It's able to go line by line and evaluate using like SQL queries and things like that. What would be the answer, and like just help you get through like new solution or older system that maybe you haven't worked in a while, that you don't remember every single part. Because let's face it, the reality is that most of the FileMaker work, well, personally as a consultant, is working on older files or a system that have been around for 10, 15, sometimes 20 years. And maybe you don't want to go deep and figure out like if you have a script calling 20 other scripts and things like that. So this is kind of a nice tool that you can use to just get good explanation around a script, what to look for, better ways of doing something. You can also use it like as a full screen assistant over here, um, where you can be more precise. You can ask it to create layouts and so on. The quick agent is really nice for like quick fix and you want to just review something. So that's a really niche feature. And I'm just gonna go back here for a second just to make sure because I think it already staged it. So here, okay. So it begins. It's starting to do the work. So it created three scripts for me, and it's putting them in Genie inside a workbench. This is what I called it, which is the place where the scripts are, and you can just basically apply them in your solution directly. So I'll create a new folder for that, just so I can watch them. Click back on this icon, and I'm just going to apply those scripts into the script workspace. And you can see this. I didn't code any line of this. And this is using, and this is part of the Clay's integration is inside Genie. And with Clay's MCP, we have best practice on how to properly create hooks. So it knows how to use the global variables and kind of the logic of Clay automatically. And you don't have to read, which is something I like to do. So I'm just going to push those scripts in, and I'm going to push the next one. There's also a create script workflow that I can go. All right, good. So I have a problem with the result acting this way. So there's always a workaround because you never know what happens. So I have a bunch of workaround if it doesn't work. And this is a kind of a good example. So it created this blob of a JSON, but it's disabled because there's a problem. And I'm not gonna waste time to fix this JSON, and I'm gonna submit that over
So that's Genie inside the calculation engine.
at the same time, yeah. And instead of trying to figure out what's wrong, I'm just gonna ask it to fix it. I'm being totally lazy here and just counting my blessing, but I think there's something. Oh yeah, you see with the client name, company name. All right, that was it. Boom. Okay, so recap. While I was kind of showing like around Genie, created all those three scripts. So now goes to my new layout, it's going to do a search and so on. And inside Codex, created those hooks, and I have a new endpoint now in my Clay app that we'll be able to go see. I'm going to refresh that over and make sure its registration detail is here. And I think I have to put it, I need to just put the ID here. So we'll do that. I'll just bring that key over, and we're going to take a student, let's say with a bunch of information. Go back here, and we're going to do load registration, and boom, we have data loading from FileMaker. And I can tell you from my helper file somewhere here that it probably called a hook. So registration detail load on utility. For those who are familiar with Clay, we have a helper file where you can see everything. For those who are not, it's just a really nice way to review everything that's going on. So from a simple prompt, just activating a layout, it created three scripts. I had to do one repair. Well, I didn't repair it. I just asked and then just fixed one part. And now I can load a full detail layout of FileMaker directly into Clay here. Live information, live hook, and I didn't code a single line.
So Bruno, so this is the page here that was you just created.
Yes.
Right. Okay, got you. And it's doing a search, so you're entering a key.
Yep.
You hit
Just
load. It's fetching
any
data
key.
from FileMaker and then coming
Yep.
back. Right. Gotcha.
Any data that I did, I'm doing here.
So I haven't seen this
Uh,
demo, so
no, me neither. I just made it on the spot. So,
yeah. But
so
but that goes to show now,
yeah,
like sorry if I can just jump in here.
absolutely.
You know, if you're a consultant and you had to build this page for a client, like, you know, first of all, we'd probably have our UX person come in, right? And they'd say, I want to, change it around. And they'd end up with probably something somewhat close, right? So
Yep.
that's going to be a few hours. And then we have to estimate the whole project out. And if you're a consultant, you know exactly what I'm talking about here, right? Then you have to estimate the project out. Then you got to orchestrate everything. Um, and in this case, this happened in, I don't know, 6 minutes or 10 minutes. Let's say 10 minutes even or something like that. You already have this incredible functionality. This is hosted, this is live, it's version controlled,
Yep.
and it's
Six
good to
minutes.
go. Yeah, and it's production ready. So that means that this script, and you say, well, FileMaker doesn't scale. Yeah, it does scale. FileMaker scales amazing. We have a client, he's got a million users he's got on his system. Okay, it's an embassy for an entire country. So that's where he's got all these users. And he does have to do some optimizations in FileMaker, make sure he doesn't do crazy finds and things like that. But that happens in any database, right? It's not a FileMaker thing. That's a architectural thing. And he hosts that on our platform on Klai Studio, right? So I hope that gives you sort of just a tip of the iceberg here, but about the power that we have now that we didn't even have. We had the power to build this stuff for the last half a dozen years, but we haven't had the ability to build it within seconds. Somebody asked where you can get the new Clay branded helper file. That one is a preview. It's in a beta. So if you want to grab a copy, just DM me and we can grab you or Bruno, we can grab you a copy of that.
Yep,
It
it's
has
it's
some analytics.
almost ready to launch. Like we've added a couple of features like a new dashboard and analytics and things like that, and we are also wrapping up a schema introspection, which is going to help like Klai Studio be able to kind of see your tables and your fields and so on in it. So
You can think of this screen is kind of like a fancy top call stats type of an idea.
yep,
It's showing. So one of the things I mentioned governance earlier on, and one of the things that we really want to do is we want to be able to build apps that you can sleep at night knowing somebody's not going to be poking holes all through it. And like I see people in calls years ago when we first started. I would jump on a demo call and I said, maybe I should build a PHP app because that was the buzzword at the time.
yep,
Now it's, maybe I should build a React app. And it's like, well, do you understand React? Do you understand reactivity type frameworks? Right? There's about six of them that are real
hmm
popular. Bruno codes in, he's originally an Angular developer. I've
yeah,
done
Angular
Angular
Python,
too.
yeah,
Yeah. And, by having an opinionated back end, one that's literally hundreds of apps in our community have been built in, there's a huge advantage to that because you know what's going on. And all of the business logic, the logic that's doing this fetch, it's not sitting in some obscure JavaScript repository somewhere. It's not sitting in some backend and a Node.js backend, Python backend, whatever. It's not sitting there. It's sitting in FileMaker, right? That means you want to make a change. You're a FileMaker developer first. And you can go in there and you can make that change easily now. Like it's not obscure to you, right? Same thing as the stuff that's calling that. Um, like I guess it probably wired an action for that for the refresh buttons or not sorry this I'm looking at something else here but this is a Clay app as well but it doesn't matter for
yep,
your page it had to connect that button up so how do you connect the button well there's going back 20 years or 15 years ago we used to have to use this framework called jQuery to connect all these buttons you had to know all this obscure syntax for jQuery then later on we started having more fancier frameworks um, Klai Studio underneath the hood, it uses Vue.js, which is a very human readable version.
yeah,
It's a newer version than React. It's actually slightly more performant, super popular. It's what ChatGPT is built in, and so on. So it's a the underlying framework. But the nice thing is we've abstracted that you don't have to touch it. If you know that code, great, you can use it. Right, you can dive in, you can add any third-party modules, you can add Vue components, anything you want there, but you don't have to touch it at all if you don't want to. And that's a really important win, I think, when it comes to building stuff.
yep,
Um, I know a lot of people I talk to, they have concerns like, okay, well, I want to build this, but I want to sell it. And it's like, I don't have a freaking clue, excuse me, that how this thing works. All right. I can't even take it apart if I want. So you're totally relying on the AI. I could argue that, well, the AI is getting better, so you should be fine going forward. But if you've built anything of significance, and I mean like a serious app, we have a new product that we're building, and it's project primarily agentic engineered. I am so afraid, and I've been all in on AI for a decade, and I'm so afraid of just letting AI just code something without having that because I know it can make mistakes. Now, knowing that, here's the beauty, is if you look at the script that it makes, the AI tends to not make a lot of cruft. It actually writes really clean FileMaker scripts because FileMaker is not that complex of a thing and it's relatively tight. Like the FileMaker scripting language is really, really, um, I guess you could say high level in the sense of like, look, we would have got like 17 lines to produce whatever that thing does. That's pretty good. Like
Yeah.
you can't do that in most languages, right? So, usually there's lots of framework. I'm doing some importing some libraries around it, and then I'm expanding that out. And I maybe have total lines of code. I maybe have 1,000 lines and then buried away under these digests. So there's a really, really great efficiency there. And because of that, you still have this well-governed code that you can inspect. And I think that's a really, really important thing that you can say to go to your clients and say, listen, we can vibe code this thing. Your nephew can build this thing. He can go on Lovable and he can build it. But we had that same problem when people went and built all those PHP apps back 20 years ago, right? That's why we started our company. We had the same problem because people were running into issues and they couldn't maintain it themselves. And I think that's a very, very important thing. If you don't mind me asking, Bruno, what does this app do?
Yep. So yeah, basically, this started mainly as a test project. Okay, so I have to, and that's why I wanted to take a solution I'm working on right now. Is we were trying to kind of, I had a bunch of tasks for this client to like create views to get receivables. Like okay, like how like this is testing database, so the numbers are going to be wrong, but like get like the payments that are due, get a dashboard of who owes me like the most money, like who's like the coordinator director for X account that is making me the most amount. Can we create a page for a client to view their attendance, because they're a language teaching business. And we just started hammering FileMaker tasks that have been on our Asana board for a year. I think I have like 12 hours of work, including this meeting right now, to build all of these pages and hooks, just because I we have the proper explanation, the database is there. I know my system enough to guide the AI into it if it doesn't know. Like I can, but even if I don't want to, I can just tell, okay, take the time to look at this script, which is what I did for like some of these, because we already had these metrics in the system. I said, look at this night script that actually builds the sales stat that produce a report that's static on the dashboard every single night, and just build a hook. And what it did is it created this page. I did like a couple of prompts to readjust what it looked like, but it built some of these scripts for receivable all by itself. And it even suggested, when I had some timeout because the payloads were too large, to create a table in FileMaker, because you can
Mm.
actually ask the AI to create a table, which it did. So it created its own table. You still have to review. So the way that I coded Janie is you have to review the work that goes in, but still, I didn't have to think that. It says, okay, we're going to create a Clay job table, and it's a table with a progress. So instead of timing out the app, it can send that request and load in the back and load the job. And when it's ready, it pushes the data out. And everything that's very large, I can pre-cache like this into the system. And those are all things that I didn't have to worry, because Codex is better than me at thinking some logic, but I'm controlling what it can build because I'm using control environment, which is really the key, I think, here, of exactly what you said. It's super easy to create things, but I could have created that app using like Codex, just pure HTML, but how do I connect it to my logic safely? And how can I get the FileMaker developer in-house here to see what I'm doing and not be completely lost? So building a portal with Python. I have a portal for this client that's amazing, that works super well, but starting to create all of these things externally was kind of a headache and would have taken me, I think, more time, because the Angular and Python app is already in production. We already have 200 users on it. And if I want to update something on it, I can't just push and have it ready. But this is not for the 200 users. It's only for like 3, 4 people in the office. So what do I do? Do I do a web viewer? I can do a web viewer, but I know the performance are going to be poor, because if I open FileMaker and I run a web viewer and I run the data live, you're loading the information through your computer, so it's slower than if the server processes it. So what do I do? And I just had the idea, okay, let's go and try to do it with Clay. And Pages just started doing like this, and I was like, oh my god, okay, this is very cool, and it's very efficient. I knew what Clay was, by the way, before, but I was surprised myself how quick and easy it was, because I didn't write any of this code at all. I didn't write a single line of these codes in the past week. I know it doesn't mean much when I'm just showing a script like this, but it's just to give an idea that if I want right now to say build me a registration list, which I could probably do, uh, it's going to do it. It's going to create me more hooks and it's going to add a page. So I can do that actually. Um, Alias view to pull registration by session and year first. Then by clicking on it, and I'm not going to give it anything. And this project only has 3 conversation, by the way, so it's meant as a fresh project, so it doesn't know much. I just got to make sure that my database is in the front here, and Codex is just going to go, all right, okay, I'm going to extend that functionality. Now it has a base. The base that it built me, I'm satisfied with. So let's take this and push it a little further. And then I'm building on something that's solid, and if ever the FileMaker developer here wants to look at what I'm pushing over, he can go in, modify the script, modify the JSON set element, doesn't have to worry about anything. And it's just going to reflect on the system, which I think is amazing, to be honest. It's a very cool, it's a new way of building app. And the reason why I think it's so efficient is because it's using tools that are controlled. So it's using flows that are controlled. It's not trying to create a brand new page. It's not trying to create a new logic. It's not going to suggest me a stack that I have to host somewhere or a Docker I have to spin. And I don't have to spend time figuring out how I'm going to push it. It's just there. Then it's on Clay. I want to push it to prod. I deployed. It's on the other server. It's ready to run. I just copy a couple of scripts and that's it. Um, so I think it's just amazing. And one other thing, I'm using Luna 5.6. So for those most developers, I think I'd like, if people are still listening, if you could do a thumbs up, who uses Claude, Anthropic, like Opus and these things when they code with AI? Is it most people?
Yeah, there's a lot of thumbs that just popped up here.
Yeah. So they're all better than Luna. Okay. So 5.6 Luna is a great model, but it's kind of the cheapest.
This is the Honda Civic of models, or the maybe the Hyundai Elantra of models. Nothing wrong
Yeah,
with it. It's very
no,
efficient.
it's probably equivalent to like the Sona 4.6 was at the time, but a little bit
Yeah.
faster, let's say, because Sona is kind. But if you're, so it's to say that, okay, I'm organized and both my MCPs are connected. But if you currently have flows right now where you're building FileMaker script or you're building apps and you already know how you kind of code your stuff, you plug those tools in and you don't have to start from scratch. You can use the tools that you have today, and this is the goal. I think this is the key thing that people must understand. The goal is not to recreate codecs. I think that's like the agent I have in FileMaker is great for certain things in FileMaker, but I'm not going to try to rebuild that flow that Codex or Cloud are doing. They're going to do it better than I'm doing it. That's for sure. So you're using the tool that you're using daily to do your AI work, but you're giving it access to control tools and proper resource, and it can just take better decision and get you going with something else. So here, 2 minutes here, and it updated the two new hooks. I can go check that out in FileMaker. My menu bar item here. So we have 2 new scripts here. Oops, clicked out. Pending. I think that was actually an edit, if I'm not mistaken. So, and I'm gonna copy the other one. Oh, that's funny. This one I saw. The rest of the code, pretty straightforward. This one I believe was an edit, so I think that's going to replace my registration detail. But there's still that thing over here that's wrong. Can you fix this function? This is the type of error if I use Terra or Sol right now. So if you were to use like a stronger model, you can get these errors. So what happened when you use a better model is that they're gonna build more context on what you're doing, and they're gonna read the resources more, and they're gonna end up costing more. When you use a cheap model, it's gonna go a little bit faster, I think, with everything. So here clearly there's something with this case function. So I'm gonna ask it to fix it. I'm gonna go. Let's see with this. Can you fix line 10? Yeah, I'm being lazy on purpose here just so that everybody can see that you don't have to work as much, I think, anymore. You still do, but I think you get used to a certain laziness also, which can be problematic.
Yeah, it's one of the things. Like I gave a talk in Vienna a few months ago, and it was just on some premises that I think are maybe some wrong. The first one was you don't have to use the most expensive model to do your
Hmm.
job, right? If you do, you can offset that significantly by having some basic knowledge of whatever it is you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And what's the expression? Anything sufficiently advanced seems like magic if you don't
Oh
understand
yeah.
how it works. There's a
There
famous
we go.
quote like that. And
But
the LLM is
you
much,
don't
very
have
much like
to anymore. Yeah, yeah, it's no, it is, but it becomes a point, like I didn't even read I'm trying not even to read anymore. But it's not to read because I want to review, and once the V0 is on and I start playing with it and I can see what it does, and then I'm gonna be like, okay, now let's be honest. Before I push this somewhere else to production, I need to do like a passive review of what it is or like deeper explanation. So but my goal now is not my goal is not to do V1 push to production in 10 minutes. That I think you need to still be a good developer and do the things in order. But I think you can get a V0 much more quickly than before, and it's good because everybody's building websites. Everybody is building apps. We've had this discussion at the CQDF here in Montreal with Claris, where people are starting like, how am I supposed to sell my service to people when their nephew is building a whole website on Claude? Well, you can build the exact same thing and be ready for the next step, I think, with tools like this. But you have to jump on the boat. Like there's no skipping
Mhm.
on these tools. Like I didn't read anything. I asked it to just fix this calculation. It did. It works. It was probably like two characters, but like for me, I think at this point it's cheaper to just push it into the AI. This was an edit, so I'm just gonna put it here. So now I have updated this book. It created a new thing to load the list, and I think it updated my page on the app, so I can refresh. And if ever, like Charles said, you ever want to go look at the code, well, you can go in the app and look at the code. I have to be honest, I didn't look at the code of any of these pages, and you can see like when they were created. Like some of them I didn't touch in 3 days, and that's when they were created. I don't know if we have a launch date of when this app was created, but it's not something that's very old. I think my first backup is well, July 10th is when I started, so it's 5 days ago that I started this project, and this
Yeah.
is what I have. So here I can do, let's say, I think this is the load list. There's a lot of registration, so this is probably going to be timing out, I think. Let me go check my helper file. So it's pulling the list here. So I know it called, but it might be a heavy script to run. Yeah. Well, this one is poorly coded. So that's an example of something that's not gonna go through.
Yeah, and
But
this is not a
yeah,
Klai Studio thing. It's not even a FileMaker thing. It's a fact
no,
that you're trying to just, how many of you have designed the database and then 4 years later it's starting to get sluggish because you have to
yeah,
optimize something, right?
yeah.
So,
But you can still tweak it. So limit the amount of record return to 100, let's say. And I could probably change the line, but like it's fine. It's fine. So this is the kind of things you do directly in FileMaker where you don't have to you use Codex or you use Claude, or well, you can use Claude to do exactly that as well because you can push the information over, but using it directly in your file, you can pick your model. You can just easily modify what you're working on. You can ask question. You can build an entire script if you want. You can do an edit. And right now this is a bad example, but it's fine. And let me just I'm gonna put it here just for the sake of this demo because this was kind of a really easy fix. And let's go to the registration detail here. And I'm gonna do this again. Bum.
I think it's kind of interesting that, and this is not a dig against FileMaker by any means, but the
Yeah,
time
there
that
you
you've
go.
spent fixing things has all been in FileMaker. And that's nothing to do with FileMaker as such. It's just that that's where a bit more action is
Yeah.
happening.
So here I have data loading and I can test my I don't know if the view is properly hooked. Probably not. So that this is something I can go back to Codex or I can fix in it. I can say the list is loading, but I can't click the view button, and then you work from there. This is loading. Details are not showing when I click on the view in Clay, and that's the part you do the back and forth. So, but I think what's really amazing, and it's just how fast you can build stuff. Like I have probably have like 15, 20 minutes of loading and a bunch of my explanation, but I still have created in the system in FileMaker 5 script, well, let's say 4 scripts, and it created an entire page. And now I have a list view, now I have detail view, and I started with absolutely nothing. I just took a random layout, took a couple of fields, dumped it on the layout, and said, I want you to rebuild this, and it just did it. And once you're started, if you already have an app, if you've done 1 2 pages that are good and that you're comfortable with, it gets easier and easier and easier. Everything just gets better, which is kind of nice as well because the system is going to learn how you work. And you can, like for this example, I think earlier today I was building a script and it was using a lot of SQL. And in the tables I was working on using SQL was terrible. It was too slow. So I said, I want you to do like the normal FileMaker flow of going to the layout, blank layout, and doing define, and then say, okay, I'm going to update for the future hooks we're going to build. It's going to do that. But before that, most of the hooks were like a single liner like this, and it was just boom, 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 and data was loading. So you can really adapt it to the way that you work. And from Genie itself, you have your preference that you can set. Like if you have like a template, if you want to put notes at the top of the system, if you want to have like follow specific patterns for a project and so on, you can ask and do it. So you customize it to your experience. I think is also the most important thing. You don't try to change the way you work using those tools. I think what's really nice is those tools are ready to work the way that you do right now. You just get them in and you're good to go, which is really nice. So this is what I'm trying to show. But right now, Codex is fetching a bunch of stuff from the FileMaker database. Right now, it's checking the scripts, it's checking everything because whatever it pushes, it can read right away.
Just going back to the whole concept of agentic engineering, and I don't really like using the term vibe coding. I think it's kind of I get the concept, and it was captured by Andre Karpathy, I think, originally, but it also implies it's like just kind of anybody can just do anything, and I don't believe that. Anybody cannot just engineer something that's going to be decent. Now, most of the client portals that you build for your clients are just simple things like this. It's not a simple thing, it's a big full blown web app, but it's not really, really deep. That you can pretty much vibe code now, right? And you can absolutely just build it here, right? To build something a little bit more, we can do so much more now and as an engineer, right? So the things that we should do and almost never do, right? The things that we should do and almost never do. I just want to mention a couple of those. So the first one is we can actually talk to our agent in the sense of explore our code, right? And we're getting to the point now, and this is kind of interesting, is we're getting to the point that the code base out it's too big. We can generate so much code that it's like I cannot review this. So you're going to start to see people coming up with new tools to have introspection into code rather than looking at the code itself. We're working on one of them ourselves, and it basically distills the code down into sort of like an infographic. Enhanced error handling, right? Some people have some basic error handling. Probably you don't have it integrated fully throughout your app. Now it's a prompt away to have this really, really deep error handling. And it doesn't just have to be your classic error code and a message anymore, right? It takes no extra effort to have this really, really enhanced error coding object that it still has, oops, I'm gonna go back here. It still has that same error code and it still has a message, so it's backwards compatible. But now you've thrown all this information in. And where that's really awesome is with your AI system, whatever you're using, you can query that information now. You can start to surface that. We could never do that before because it was just take too long. A couple other some real power things you can do. This is another thing that you can do, idempotency. It basically means that you can run something and run it a whole bunch of times. And if you've ever had to build some kind of automation, click a button, it does this, it does that, it does this thing, sends an email, right? It does maybe 4 or 5 things. Those things could have maybe APIs, could have record locking, could have all kinds of crap that's going to break in there. And you had to account for all of that stuff. Now you can have your script and you can take Genie and say, hey, make this idempotent and have some enhanced error handling in there so that when I have that log, I can point that log back to my assistant and it can fix it all. So that's really, really powerful. So the idea here is you have that button, you click it a whole bunch of times, it'll only do the thing once. So that's the definition there. Another one that you can do, things you can do in terms of agentic engineering or full stack engineering now that we couldn't do before, well, we didn't want to do, we're too lazy to do, is this concept of mutex is basically means that two things can't do the thing at the same time. So, for example, you have a nightly inventory sync and that script takes longer than normal. It takes 2 hours and it runs every once an hour, but somebody blew up the system and now it takes 2 hours to run. The second one doesn't come in and start running over that, right? You have to write some code around that. And you have to really wrap your head around that stuff. It's hard to think about those things. So, well, it's hard for me to think about those things. But it takes a lot of work to get your head wrapped around how that's gonna code. You don't have to understand it anymore. You just have to understand the concept. So we're moving up as developers. We're moving from learning syntax to learning agentic systems, right? To thinking as an entire system, and that's really really key. And the last one, I know some of you will know what TDD is, but does anybody know what FDD is? And it stands for fear-driven development. That means like I don't want to touch this thing because I don't understand what it's going to do. So I'm just going to create another thing right beside it. I remember I was working on this thing for the Image Awards. It was a PHP powered website powered by FileMaker. And, so these big awards, all these movie stars are using this system. And we were so afraid to touch this massive ugliness that we just created a whole new table of occurrence graph right beside it, moved everything over, and worked in our neat one. You don't have to do that anymore. The AI can introspect all of that, can surf all of that, and now we have so much more ability to control those things. Um, Test-driven development. We don't have currently a harness in FileMaker, and I'm really surprised. And I think it's because most of our developers don't come from outside our ecosystem. At least in big code, we'll call it big code. They don't come from big code. And because of that, they don't have this TDD type mentality at all. But this is something that will come. This is a prediction. It will start to come into our space. And the idea is that you write tests for every piece of code, right? Bruno's got a script that returns exactly 100 records. So it'll try to fetch and it'll check. The test will run that script. How many records did it come back? 100, 99, and it'll pass or fail. And you have literally hundreds or thousands of these tests wrapped around a piece of code for that. It's something we couldn't do before, right? But now you can build a system like a full web stack, full web app with Klai Studio and Genie, and you can have this full test TDD type environment if you wanted to. I just want to show you how things were connected there. Somebody asked me, said, well, it seems a bit complicated how this MCP stuff works. All right, so this is inside Klai Studio. We have multiple environments. This is my demo, one of my demo accounts, and I have a development, an environment that's like an entire app, if you will, staging, and I have a couple production environments here. And we literally go in to the settings here. We say MCP. We could pick what platform. It doesn't really matter. The truth is, you can use any of these. And we say fetch copy. It copies a JSON object onto my clipboard. I go over to my agent, whatever I'm in, and I'm saying, shouldn't really paste API keys in there, but you could, and it's probably fine, but that's not official for me. You could say paste this MCP or get this in cursor. You can just say add this MCP into the system, and it'll connect it all up. All right. So it's that easy to do. And then you just chat away. You do have to have an environment set up, and you have to have a domain for that environment so that do some things. I'll give you an idea. A couple of these are some things I just did with single prompts. Um, this is a just a demo center here that we just did with a single prompt. I said, hey, I have a whole bunch of demos. Can you just wire them all together for me? So, Madalena, one of our team, her son was over. He's about 14. He says, well, what do you guys do exactly? I see you on the Zoom all the time. Oh, what are you talking about? Right. So I said, well, what do you do? And he said, well, I play Minecraft. So we said, why don't we make um, a Minecraft players portal? Right. This was two prompts to do this. Right. This is not currently hooked up to a FileMaker database, but it's only a couple more prompts to build the back end for it now as well. So it has, home, it has a lobby here. I can select different people, and it has the ability to do some kind of likes and whether I'm going, and all of this stuff is wired up. To wire this thing up in the past, even just 3 or 4 years ago, even of our fastest developers, a couple on our team that are really, really quick. And when I say, hey, how long would it take you? That's about a day, right, to build all the little widgetry and everything like that. And that's from a design. So it's a massive improvement in terms of our time saving. Here's another one. We had somebody did a demo the other day and they said, hey, I need to build this app and it's for a dance school. And it needs a public-facing web portal, but it also needs a place for the people to judge. So this is a dance off. This is the public-facing portal where they can see who's performing now and the team rankings. And as teams come in, the data would show up there. And then let's go back. This is the control center, um, where they can go and they can add in, a user can go in and they can add in the different teams. They can, delete teams and delete I guess I don't know, whatever they do for dance. And you can add the judges. And this is from the front end's perspective, fully wired up app, right? Now it's really easy. The hard part was wiring the back end in FileMaker, but now with Genie now, it's a piece of cake too. And we're doing that literally in hours rather than weeks and maybe even months, right? And then this would be the results there. So it gives you a kind of, it's hard to imagine like these kinds of apps being powered by FileMaker, right? It doesn't feel like FileMaker, doesn't look like FileMaker. But, and I've said this, for almost a decade now, if you love FileMaker now, wait till you use it as a pure database. And I'm not knocking FileMaker as a system. I'm just saying some of the stuff that it does exceptionally well is it has a scripting engine and it has a really powerful database, right? And those two exposed to the rest of the world are just phenomenal, right? Absolutely phenomenal. And like I said, we have users have million plus users on their system. They're not all in the same time banging on FileMaker, but over the course of a month, you got millions of people hitting this thing. I mentioned how things are connected up in terms of MCP. Really easy to add. You just basically point your two different your think of this as an MPC server. You point Klai Studio into your tool. I use cursors, one we use in house mostly, and Genie's already pointing to FileMaker. It exposes an MCP that I expose to cursor as well. So now we have one source of intelligence that can control the full stack, and that's how we can generate that. Couple things I just want to mention really quick here. Stuff changes, right? And this stuff is not going to go away anytime soon. Like the concept of MCP is not. We might come up with another protocol or something like that. Um, but if you're waiting for things to settle down, it probably won't happen for another decade. Right? Like we're in a massive state of flux right now, and if you can keep your melon kind of fluid enough that or soft enough that you can be flexible or malleable and try to take in some of these ideas, you get much faster at being able to adapt to change, right? It's the people who don't even try to make a change that, feel the most pain, right? If you allow yourself to just kind of go with it, you don't have to, there's a thing in learning in another life, I have a school that I teach at. And if you're learning stuff and this is your knowledge, the world is changing like this right now. and let's say we're here. I don't know, it doesn't matter where you are. As long as you're somewhere behind here, even if it's down here, it may feel like you're really slow. But when this thing moves up to this position, that means you've moved way up too. You've moved up to here. You're going to lag behind a little bit. That's okay, right? We don't have to be data scientists and all work for Google, right? We're the implementers. We're the actual engineers who do this stuff. So really keep that in mind that your skills are going to expire and you're going to always have to constantly refresh them. Hop on a call with us, right? And you can book a demo there and we'll hop on and we'll build your app. Let's actually look at what you're doing and let's build the thing because you see how quick it is, right? Genie, as far as Genie, there's a link here and you can follow that as well. And Bruno can answer all the specifics there. geniewave.ca, and here's a QR code here, or take a screenshot of the whole thing. And Klai Studio, Klai.studio, sorry, for coupon as well. And I'll tell you what, if you book a call, I'll send you a t-shirt and you can get your own
Nice.
systems thinker t-shirt. So,
Nice.
right. All right.
Well, thank you, Charles and Bruno and everybody for joining us. Thanks for keeping the
thank
group
you.
going
Thanks for
strong.
having
And
us.
yeah, we always love to hear about it. And we thank everybody. I'm going to have a great day. So we'll get this up on YouTube next week sometime.
Thanks all.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Bye.
Ciao.
Thank you.